I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence. Sometimes I did the same.
That's the first thing you hear before these walls even begin. Not drums, no rapping, not even a melody. Just a snap and a confession. Then the atmosphere shifts. A woman moans in pleasure while a voice repeatedly whispers, if these was guitar, if these was guitar. Sex. Immediately, Kendrick Lamar places the listeners inside of a home, a room, a private room, an intimate room, a room filled with secrets. And on the surface, these walls off To Pimp a Butterfly sound smooth, seductive, warm. The type of record people casually throw on during late night drives, parties, or intimate moments. The instrumentation glides, the hook is hypnotic, the double entendre is obvious immediately. These walls are the walls of a room, but they are also the walls of a woman's body. And for years, that's where many listeners stopped. But Kendrick is doing something much darker underneath the surface of this song, because these walls is not a love story, it's a revenge story. And the scary part is how calmly Kendrick tells it. See, throughout To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick repeatedly examines what fame, trauma, guilt, lust, and power have done to him psychologically. This album is not Kendrick presenting himself as some morally perfect revolutionary figure. It's Kendrick exposing his flaws in brutal detail: his ego, temptations, depression, survivor's guilt, his misuse of influence. And These Walls is one of the clearest examples of that conflict, because hidden inside the seductive record is a continuation of a story Kendrick had already told years earlier on Good Kid, Mad City. Specifically, Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. That song centers around the trauma and violence surrounding Kendrick growing up in Compton, including the death of his close friend during a drive by shooting. The pain from losing his friend haunted Kendrick deeply. And on To Pimp a Butterfly, you start seeing how that unresolved grief mutates into something uglier. Because according to the story Kendrick is telling in these walls, the woman he's involved with is connected to the man responsible for killing his friend. Not just connected, she is the mother of his child, the girlfriend of the man sitting in prison for life. And Kendrick knows this. That changes everything about the song. Suddenly, the intimacy no longer feels romantic, it feels calculated. Now, the lyrics sound less like seduction and more like a psychological warfare. Kendrick understands the emotional vulnerability of the situation. The woman is lonely. The father of her child is gone forever, locked behind prison walls. And into that emotional emptiness steps Kendrick Lamar, successful rapper, influential figure, desired celebrity. He knows the power he holds in this situation. That's why the opening poem matters so much. Misusing your influence. Kendrick is admitting from the very beginning that what you are about to hear is morally complicated. He knows he is crossing lines emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically, but grief has twisted his perspective. Instead of healing from the loss of his friend, Kendrick chooses revenge through intimacy. He becomes involved with the killer's girlfriend as a way to emotionally torment the man who took someone he loved. And what makes the writing so brilliant is that Kendrick never screams this at the listener directly. He layers the story beneath sensual production and smooth melody, forcing you to slowly uncover the ugliness hidden underneath the music. Now, that is real writing, because once you fully understand the story, every part of these walls becomes darker. The moaning at the beginning sounds different. The whispers sound haunting. The seduction feels manipulative. Even the phrase, if these walls could talk, evolves throughout the record. At first, you think Kendrick simply means bedroom walls, witnessing intimacy and secrets. But then the metaphor expands. The walls become prison walls, emotional walls, psychological walls. One man is trapped inside a prison cell thinking about the woman Kendrick is now sleeping with. Meanwhile, Kendrick himself is trapped inside unresolved grief, anger, and revenge fantasies he still hasn't healed from emotionally. That's why this song feels so heavy once the layers click together. Nobody wins here. Kendrick may feel temporary satisfaction knowing the man who killed his friend can't retaliate, can't defend his relationship, can't stop what's happening. But spiritually, Kendrick is still tormented because revenge rarely brings peace. And that's one of the central themes of To Pimp a Butterfly. The album constantly asks, what happens when a traumatized person gains influence before fully healing? That's the butterfly being pipped. Kendrick's gift, his fame, his influence, his trauma. On this album, Kendrick repeatedly shows how success amplified parts of himself he still didn't fully understand. Lust becomes destructive, ego becomes dangerous, influence becomes something that can be abused. And in these walls, Kendrick weaponizes intimacy itself. That's what makes this record so uncomfortable and genius at the same time. Kendrick does not sanitize his flaws to protect his public image. He openly portrays himself making morally questionable decisions. Most artists would avoid showing themselves in this kind of light. Kendrick leans directly into it. He wants the listener uncomfortable because discomfort forces reflection. And honestly, this is why Kendrick Lamar's writing has always existed on a different level than most people realize. Long before recent battle records shocked audiences emotionally, Kendrick had already mastered the art of psychological storytelling. These Walls was the warning sign. This song showed Kendrick's ability to weaponize perspective, trauma, morality, and human emotion inside music. He doesn't just rap at people, he constructs layered narratives that slowly unravel over time. That's why his most devastating records feel less like diss tracks and more like psychological breakdowns set to music. And when you revisit songs like These Walls, you realize those abilities didn't suddenly appear overnight in tracks like Meet the Grams. The blueprint was already there years ago. The calm delivery hiding devastating meaning, the layered symbolism, the emotional manipulation, the tension hidden beneath beautiful production. Kendrick has always understood how to make listeners participate in uncomfortable realizations. That's why These Walls ages so well as a piece of writing. Every revisit reveals another layer. First, it sounds sensual, then emotional, then tragic, then sinister. And by the end, the song becomes a portrait of how grief can quietly corrupt a person when left unresolved. Kendrick lost his friend. The man who killed him lost his freedom. The woman caught in the middle lost stability and emotional security. Everybody inside of this story is trapped behind different walls. And if those walls could really talk, they probably wouldn't tell a love story at all.